All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. So, to introduce myself, I'm Joe Langton, and if you're going to listen to this, you obviously must be interested in automating your book of business. And what got me started, I'll take you a little background of myself. I went to school for small circuitry and analysis, started a snow removal company in 1999, and quickly scaled that company. How I did it was I would walk in with a simple question, what's it going to take? What's it going to take for me to plow your parking lot? When I started landscaping in 2005, I asked what it was going to take for me to be the professional landscaper and quickly grew the company. So what interested myself in automation is as I went from the snow sector into the landscaping sector, I realized it was much harder to pull the profit in the landscaping market than I could in the snow market. So we had to make a model to basically pay our snow employees more money than our landscape employees, and that did not fit well in our core ethics at our company. I did not want to be that person that kept somebody at a grass ceiling. And I realized in this industry, lawn maintenance is a loss leader. So if we talk about loss leaders in grocery stores, milk is a loss leader. And they figure if you buy milk, you'll get the Oreo cookies and they'll make the money. The thing is, when you look at milk, it's like 3% of what a grocery store, maybe less, 1% of what a grocery store sells. Maintenance is sometimes 50% of what a landscaping company does. So made me very passionate about automation, and I basically started looking at what already exists. Now, what's important to know about automation and the insight I'm going to give to the automation once I get into my slide is I've always wanted to just take what exists in the market and what's existed in the market in Europe and in other parts of the world and figured out how they could actually fit into the United States market. And I've always just looked at it as a cost per acre of mowing. And that's important in this segment, what I'm going to try to get people that are here to think about with automation. In our current trailers that we have right now, I know landscapers have push mowers and 36-inch mowers and 60-inch zero turns because I'm one of those landscapers. I have 180 employees in Illinois at Langton Group. We do about $10 million in revenue. So as I speak to you right now, I always tell people I speak middle market landscaper. I understand a lot of the costs there. So if you're a larger national, you're going to have different labor burden rate than someone like myself. And if you're a smaller operator, a couple people in a truck, your burden rate will be different. So I just want to say, as I present some of my examples, realize some of the costs could be different, but I just want to take you down the path, right? So why do we mow, right? If you're listening to what I say and maintenance is a loss leader, we have to ask why we mow in the first place. Well, we mow for other profit centers, mulching, hardscape, softscape, for myself, snow contracts, and consumer demand expectations. What do I mean by the consumer demand? I said I started in snow in '99. I started landscaping in 2005. I quickly realized by 2007 or 2008, I was not making the money I wanted. When I went back to the customer and said I didn't want to mow their grass, they said, well, then just find a different vendor. Okay? We'll use somebody else. If you don't mow the grass for us, we'll find somebody else. I believe this is a perennial problem in our industry because people end up trapped in mowing. Automation solves that problem for all of us, and I want to be here to help solve that problem with you. So before we go into some of those other things, I just want to talk about other things that people don't ever talk about at shows. It's important for me to say this. Everybody always wants to know how much automation costs or how much it is per acre, but no one ever talks about the variables that you can fix with automation, okay? What automation does for the professional is starts to lock in some pricing so you can forecast for the future. So why do we have to do forecasts? We have to operationally forecast. We have to work with our sales manager to set pricing for the coming year. So just to bring up some things, when I automate with all electric equipment, I don't have to think about rising fuel prices anymore. I can actually take the truck prices right now that when you look at what we've done in our industry, all the equipment has gotten larger, right? Because the cost to mow with the employee is more. So what has that done to the professional landscaper? In order to save time, we have 72-inch zero turns, bat wing mowers. Any show, if you go to GIE, any expos, you see bigger equipment. Well, now you need bigger trailers. Now you need bigger trucks, okay? All of those prices increase. While we have a manager at whatever location we're selling, whether you're doing residential or commercial, we, by the way, do primarily commercial work, they never want to raise the price of mowing, right? So all of our costs are constantly increasing, and even go off Jim's last segment when he showed the amount that he had to raise prices for inflation. The reality of it is the hardest part to raise pricing on with inflation is the mowing. So you can use smaller trucks with automation. The mower pricing, where mowers have gone up in price, automation has actually remained steady because the technology actually has gotten better, so the acreage that they mow has come down. Maintenance costs decrease, and you need less labor, right? So automation is an inflation buster, okay? I'm telling you, if you want to remember anything, we can stop the things that hurt this industry with inflation with automation, and I'll show you how. So one of the things that I want to bring up is in service. I've been doing this, like I said, since 2005. And one of the things that causes myself and my sales team the most difficulty to raise pricing is we have a very saturated market. It's a massive industry. We have a lot of competition. And the barrier to entry in this industry is very low for startups. You can have a pickup truck that you already own and go buy a zero turn and get a couple of friends to mow for you, and you have a very low cost per acre. In that first year, you think you're just crushing it, okay? You're actually questioning why people charge $50 an acre because you're just killing it at 25, okay? So you get all these people excited to mow for next to nothing. As people grow, they don't factor in their rising overhead, and they end up pricing themselves out of the market. And this cycle, in my opinion, has been on repeat for decades now. So my passion, and just so everybody knows, if you follow me and start to utilize me as an industry mentor, what I'm trying to do is get professionals, landscape professionals, to help make our industry more professional again through using automation. So one of the things I wanted to put was a pricing example. And this is here so that people realize something that I realized when I started to automate Langton Group. Anybody that knows me knows might be one of the most passionate people in the industry about automation. But I was upset because I could not get my company Langton Group in Illinois to start to utilize the automation. And for a few years, I felt like I was beating my head up against the wall. And I realized it's because I never put the option for my sales team to sell the automation. Okay? So it's important to know, if you are a business that wants to get automation into your book, you actually have to give something for your sales team to price. So that was step one for Langton, okay? And to step back a little bit so people understand, Langton Group right now, it's important for me to use this opportunity. We have several hundred Husqvarna units, okay, that we currently use. We have 34 of the Echo units that, if you were at my booth, mow out in service agreement. And now we have the Mowfleet trailer that we partnered with the company in Sweden for. And basically that fills in all the gaps where there was no power, there's no place to plug it in. That's all solved with Mowfleet. And I've been on this quest to basically fill in this spreadsheet. Okay, so as you look at this spreadsheet, The reason I am robot agnostic is because I wanted to fill in all these spaces. So let me explain. At my company, with our fully burdened labor rate, and I'm not going to get into what the rate is because right now I'm just showing you a spreadsheet. All the back math is mine. But $105 is what I think it costs my people at Langton Group to mow an acre of grass. I can tell you right now, with the mow fleet solution, if I only mow one shift with that in 5 days, I'm $72 an acre. So my company is much more profitable because if I can still win work at $105 an acre with that 36-inch walk behind, that profit is mine because I'm an innovator in the industry. Nobody else is doing it yet. And as you look, that price stays consistent, 72, 72. I don't know, the 03, I must have just hit 3 instead of 0, but it's 72 across the board. Now, one of the things that's awesome about automation is in my mow fleet solution, that will mow one shift, but I can do multiple shifts. If I mow 2 shifts, that price of 72 drops in half. By the way, that's in a 32-week market. So if you're in a market where you mow 40 weeks, 52 weeks, that price just comes down, okay? It's important, and going to the know your ROI, when you're looking at automation, you have to divide the amount of weeks you're mowing out by the cost of the automation, right? So it depends on the professional where you're operating for what that number is going to be. So right now, this is a sheet from Northern Illinois. It's a 32-week market. So that's important to anybody sitting in here. This is a 32-week market. So now you can see, I get up into the 54-inch walk behind area. These are more open spaces, maybe an acre, okay? I can use the Husqvarna 450, 550 unit stationary, and I can plug in $60 an acre and be roughly the same price as that 0 turn, or the 54-inch. And as you look, you can kind of see, now that Ciora's out, I'm $39.50 an acre versus $50 for a 0 turn, and you get up to that 72-inch. Same thing with the Echo, I'm about $35. Now how do I get to that price? I'm taking the cost of the equipment, I'm looking at battery cycle time, so if I'm figuring 5,000 cycles out of a battery, and that gets me 5 years, let's say in Illinois, I'm taking the price of the mower, the profit margin I want to make, dividing it out by how many mows I get, and how many acres the robot does. It's pretty simple math. Now, and then I take the fully burdened labor rate it's going to take to manage it, and I put it in. Now, every one of yours is going to be different, right? That's important to know. I'm not scared to show this spreadsheet right now because I know everybody's fully burdened cost is going to be a touch different, but this just gets us down the path. And I do want people to know as I'm giving this presentation, I want people to ask me questions once I'm done because we can start to kind of roll this out. Okay, so that's just some examples. So things you have to ask yourself when you're going to automate is once you have the robot there, I'm a firm believer in professionals still providing full service with automation. Okay, I've never been someone that's worried about manufacturer selling direct because I'm confident that the consumer is still going to need the landscape professional to do everything else because quite frankly, the robot doesn't do everything. Okay, but the robot can do the things that we really don't care to do and the things that are keeping people at a lower labor rate. So going back to my other slide showing all the other profit centers, if you take people that were mowing grass and move them over to those higher profit centers, that benefits your company in 2 ways. The automation can be more profitable and you can do more of the other profit centers. So one of the things I wanted to say is if you have a $40 fully burdened labor rate and you're figuring out, okay, well, how much time is it going to take me to line trim, okay? If you're going to basically line trim and it's going to be a little less than a half an hour to do an acre property, you're going to be somewhere between 30 and 40 bucks, right? Or maybe 15. You know, you got to know your fully burdened rate, okay? So, you know, one of the things I can help with, and we can do it here, is, you know, all you need to do is figure out property addresses, figure out models you want to use, and then you can perform your installs and you can have a highly profitable model. So I only have the slides I'm not like Jim in the last presentation. The guy's got slides and videos all over. It's hard to come after him. I am someone that likes to just answer the questions and talk about the models. So one thing I do want to add at this point in the presentation is the reason I've selected the units that I currently use, actually I'm going to go one step up. The units that I currently use is because I can insure them. Okay, so this is the thing I want to leave on. I have a podcast called Automating Success. I've interviewed, and if you guys like podcasts, follow that podcast, Automating Success. I've had all sorts of different manufacturers on that podcast. But I think there's one thing that nobody ever likes to talk about, and it's if the unit is insurable. So I saw Sith Robotics was on there. Great product. In my opinion, we're complicating things because we're trying to still make big equipment that people don't have to ride on. So it doesn't have to be large. That equipment doesn't charge itself. There's equipment out there right now that will pull into a charging station, charge itself. And if you don't want to use that equipment, there's equipment that we have that you put in a trailer and it'll charge at your shop. But bigger is not better in automation because it's doing it consistently. One of the things that I also bring up as I showed those slides, I'm showing like a price per acre, but the reality of it is we're mowing every day. So it's important for people to know I say I'm 6 times better than my competition in my stationary models because I'm providing 6 extra days of service that they've never seen before. So the reason we've been able to grow so rapidly in automation is that. It's 6 times the level of service they've been used to seeing. So now, with MowFleet, that's a once a week solution. The Sith robotic machine, when it's completed in market, that's once a week. So you'll have to ask yourself also when you get involved in automation, do I want to be a daily service provider or a weekly service provider or a hybrid, which is what we are. We will give daily service if the customer wants it and we price it that way. We'll give weekly service if that's all the customer wants to pay for. And that's it. So does anybody have any questions at this point in the presentation for me? Yeah. Yeah. So the question that he had asked was like, if you build that out for them and they say they don't want all the other services now. I don't mind now in automation because I'm profitable in that segment. I mean, one of the things that I've actually told people when I started Langton, I said I would never be a subcontractor for anyone. I'm a prime contractor, and that was where I left it. Now that I do automation, I would be anybody's subcontractor. If Landcare, if Brightview, if any of those people were here, I'll subcontract your automation all day because I've figured out how to be profitable in it, okay? So it doesn't really bother me. I would say, though, to expand on that, if you educate your customer and explain that you've actually provided them the infrastructure to automate and you know where that infrastructure is and exists, you can likely keep all of that work because they're not going to want to bring in an outside source. So to give you an example off that, a lot of my systems are wired. So what I do at Langton Group is if I bid the system or if I bid the other work, if my people hit the wire, I fix it for free. If they bring in another contractor and they hit the wire, I charge to fix it. So it's almost a little bit like a golden handcuff to them because now they have the system, we provided the system, and they keep the system. The other thing I didn't bring up is for me to automate, and I'm providing these infrastructures, I actually ask for extended term contracts. So when you think about it, why do people in this industry only do one-year contracts? Okay, if you worked with us and you were running that, the consumer might be nervous. What happens if you leave next year? So every year they want to make sure I do whatever it takes to keep you because they like you as the person mowing. But with automation, we're providing them something predictable. Okay, I always say if you like what I did for you this year, you're going to love what I do for you next year, because it's getting dialed in over time. Another thing that I've done to make sure I keep that customer then is in my sales process, I've actually incentivized my salespeople to actually pay them equal commission on renewals. So if you're an organization that maybe has a sales staff and your sales team sells an account and then they get a decreased commission over time, what's awesome about automation and keeping a sales team is we actually want those renewals. So one of the things that I found and what's really inspired my team at Langton to sell more automation is I offer a consistent renewal, and then when it comes down to after the 3-year, let's say it's in the South, after the 3-year contract is up, they can actually get an increased commission to renew after the first 3. Now, the reason I do that is my automation at that point is getting paid down, but it should last 5 to 7 years. So I want to push as hard as I can for the renewal and keep that customer. Did that answer your question? Yep. Okay. So I have to say I expected more questions. So I last time I did a show like this, I didn't leave myself enough time for questions. So go ahead, Kyle.
I have a question.
Here, use the mic so other people can hear your question.
Okay. I'm from Sweden, so my experience is different for the landscaping business, of course. But after working with the landscapers in Sweden for 5 years or something, much longer actually, but 5 years with the system I bring, I'm a bit surprised that so many landscapers, A, they don't know their cost to mow an acre, or B, they don't want to know it. They actually, in the back of their mind, they know they're losing money, but they just keep on doing it anyway. Is it the same way in the US for your experience?
No, that's a great question, and that gives me something to really expand on. So I think that's a ignorance is bliss scenario, right? I think there's two things that happen there, and that goes to my other slide. When people get in this industry, they get into it because they love landscaping. They've either worked for somebody else and they want to do it themselves, or they just like to be outside and work outside. So they're not a cost-minded individual. And what happens is I think it's kind of like you just put it all in the bin, and then what's left over I take, but they don't actually itemize it out. I think once they reach the size where they do itemize it out, it's the point of no return. It goes back to what I had said with Costco. Costco is one of my biggest customers. So if I told Costco I'm not going to plow your snow anymore, they're going to say, well, then I'll find somebody else. So it traps the professional into continuing on. So if they have to do it, they just don't care. All they're really caring about is at the end of the year if they made enough money to buy another truck next year, right? And that's where I think the industry. It's what makes me so passionate about trying to get in front of people and mentoring the industry, because it's a goal of mine to make sure when people get in automation, they build a profitable model around the automation. Because in automation, you'll know who actually has a profitable model that they built out and who's not profitable, because the people that can continue to build and get more and more automation built the best model. If you don't build the model right in the first place, you'll stop automating because you won't be able to afford your next batch of robots. To actually say how we started, I only started with 4 units. I got 4 Husqvarnas, then I did 18, then we did 100, and we just kept on growing, because every year I was able to show a profitable P&L just based on that vertical of business. That's another thing I'll say. If you really want to grow this, figure out a way to separate that vertical so that you can actually show your lender how that part of your maintenance division is profitable. So yeah, so that is, I mean, Kali, I think it's the same across the board. I do think the difference, though, to expand why robotics have been so successful in European countries versus the United States is Europeans value labor higher, and they don't see landscapers like we call everybody in the United States landscapers. In Europe, and as you're well aware of, they're gardeners, right? And the yards are smaller, so a gardener, from what I've seen when I was in the UK for 10 days, gardeners are seen like carpenters, okay? So in the United States, no one would think twice to pay a carpenter or an electrician $50 to $80 an hour. But if a landscaper says I'm $80 an hour, people say that's unskilled labor. It's the most bizarre thing I've ever heard in my life, right? But because of this, you know, like I said, I go back to, like, we're trapped in this country with that. And automation instantly makes this industry look professional because it's technology, you know. So yeah.
I would fill up that question with theoretically, if landscapers that all mow grass, if nobody's making money anyway on the lawn mowing, if you came in and just took over all of the lawn mowing with robots and let all the landscapers do the other things, to keep the other services, would that work? Would they allow that? Because they should, because they aren't making money on the lawn mowing. I haven't dared to try it in Sweden, but to suggest it, but actually we should.
Yeah, so I think that, so that's a whole different conversation to me, but it's a good one to have right now. So this is one of the reasons I think, so manufacturers have always gone after top 100 landscapers. I mean, I know this because I've worked with landscapers. So they want to go after top 100 landscapers, and they haven't done enough research to realize top 100 landscapers have adopted like a hybrid. They have subcontractors, and they self-perform some of the other work. So yes, I believe what I think will happen is there will be an adoption where people that get really good at automatic mowing will end up becoming the large contractor's subcontractor, and then you'll have a lot of new companies emerge that'll take that on. But I do believe, like for myself with Langton, I mean, we've always been a self-performer, we'll always continue to be a self-performer, and we'll just use automation to better our stance and position in the industry. I think, yep, I saw you gotten up.
Okay, I have a question. You're a leader in this space here. What advice would you have to a landscape company that's really trying to learn from you? Like, what would be your recommendation for early steps?
Yeah.
Like, how do you tip your toe in the water, get started?
Yeah, well, I mean, that goes off of what I had actually said a minute ago. Like, if you start, let me back up. I would say take a property that's painful for you to mow right now, whether it's too wet, it's too far away, properties like that. These are perfect properties to get started with automation. And actually, to tell a quick story, my brother did not believe in automation at all. He actually, when I told my brother I was going to do this, he thought I was crazy. So to prove to him that I thought I was right, I actually took people that had let us go, that had fired Langton Group, and reapproached them with automation. And the reason they had fired us was I had an operator that spun the tire around the tree and it kept leaving ruts. Or another example was we had just done $85 a yard mulch, and our guy sprayed grass on the $85 mulch, and the person said, I just spent $85 a yard for mulch and your guy covered it in grass, you're fired, right? Those types of people. I called them. So I'm Joe Langton, I own Langton Group, I see you let us go. You know, what happened? They explained it, and I said, hey, what if I could automate it? What if you didn't have to worry about that guy that was clearly just having a bad day and made a mistake? And something that's important that I did not expect to hear, they said, Joe, if you could clone 100 of you, I would have never fired you. But you can't clone you. So I'll try the robot. And we still have, actually of those 18 first customers, I only lost one. And I'll be honest with you, I lost one even with the automation because he couldn't get over not having lines. The cool thing now is we have automation that has lines. So you see what I mean? So that's a very powerful thing. So we started small, and we looked at it as like anybody else that started a company here. Nobody went from $0 to $1 million, in a year, right? So I just looked at it as another division, and actually to expand on that, I had said I started snow, then I went from snow to landscaping. Really, when I went from landscaping, I just started working for the companies I plowed for. I didn't start doing brick pavers till 2007. I started landscaping in 2005. In 2007, I got into brick. Okay? From there, I got into water features. Then from there, I got into irrigation. Okay? And one thing I'll say even about irrigation, if you're a contractor that does irrigation work, the current automation is not that much different than doing irrigation because everything is zoned. Like what I do if you sent me a map and I had to zone out mow fleet, all I'm doing is zoning out third acre zones. The other thing I'll add with automation is properties that people typically don't want to do, you want to do with automation. So I'll bring up cemeteries. Okay? Cemeteries are low-lying fruit for automation because there's a high cost per acre to do cemeteries, and it's because you've got to go around headstones, you have to do, nothing about it is easy. So here's my suggestion for anybody sitting here. I just said mow fleet, depending on where you're at, let's say it's $40 to $70 an acre. I can tell you, as a professional, anybody sitting out there, I could do a cemetery, I could probably bid $110 an acre right now and get it, because nobody wants to do it. I'm going to give you a couple freebies right now. Most cemeteries spend $70,000 in granite repair every year because professional landscapers chip their granite. Our plastic Husqvarnas don't chip anything. Okay? So if you go in and present value in the automation to the customer, you're guaranteed you're going to get the work. So that's how I would start. Another thing I would say, by the way, just as I'm talking about it, and I don't have a lot of people here to ask questions about right now, but if you are currently doing residential, start looking at municipal. Okay, municipalities want to go electric, but what's going to be the issue to going all electric? Well, an electric zero turn takes 40 amps to charge. Our automation takes 2 to 3 amps to charge per robot. So low energy, small amperage to charge, so municipalities will eat this up. Medians, okay, and I don't want to seem like I'm funneling people to mow fleet, but I am the distributor of mow fleet, and so that's what it is. But we could do medians with mow fleet. You don't have to worry about as much traffic protection. You don't have to worry about somebody jumping the median and hitting your person with, you've got the workman's comp risk. And the biggest thing is most automation now doesn't side discharge. So now you're not throwing grass in the busy street and trying to figure out how you're going to blow it back in, right? So that's the other thing that I would urge people to do with automation is venture outside your comfort zone, your typical book of business you're working in, and then put it in your pain points. Fill in those pain points. Does anybody else have any questions then? Okay, so in closing, I will say not all automation is created equal. Remember, think about each piece that's in existence and think about how you can fill in the gap. So what we do at AOS is we fill in those gaps. You can take a 16-acre area, automatically mow it with pattern. You can take a 12-acre area with Ciora, mow that area. You can take our mow fleet solution and fill in all the third-acre areas that don't have any power. And you can fill a whole cemetery with mow fleet if you don't have any power. The advancements to automation have been huge. As I see Nexmo sitting there. They have solutions. There's all sorts of solutions to look at. It just takes you trying some and getting involved. That's the only thing that you need to do. So with that, I appreciate your time. We're going to end a little early, but thank you.